Hi BookTube, and welcome to a new video. So November has been dominated for me by my non-fiction reads, so non-fiction November. But so I hadn't really planned on doing any novellas in November, but it just so happened I had a slight gap of yesterday between finishing my non-fiction reads and a buddy read which starts on the 1st of December with Alan at Big Hard Books and Classics, where we are reading Dante's Inferno together. So yesterday I read 2 novellas, because that's the beauty of novellas, you can knock them off pretty quickly. So I read Stefan Zweig, 24 Hours in the Life of a Woman, and Dave Eggers' new book which came out last week called The Captain and the Glory, which is a Trump spoof. But I'm going to start with Zweig. So this is the 3rd Zweig book I've read this year, having never read him before. And I said after the second one that this would be the tiebreaker because I liked Confusion very much, which is the first one of his I read. And then I was left pretty indifferent by Chess, which is the second one. So I thought I needed a third one to decide whether I would carry on with him or not. And this it was. And I figured out Zweig's shtick, really. It's start off with the framing device as the excuse for then a character sort of saying in flashback some event in their life, and these are basically short story ideas stretched out to novella length by overwriting and over-automation. And the weird thing is that the framing device never really has anything to do with the story told in flashback. They're not dialoguing, and that was very much the case here. So what's it about? Well, the framing device is really good and could have made a novella or a short story of its own, where a group of Western Europeans are in a holiday resort where they are summering, and they're also talking to each other and getting to know each other. And this young French guy in his 20s turns up one day, and the next day the wife of one of the holiday makers has left a note saying she's left her husband, and the implication is she's got off with this French guy. And then a debate ensues amongst the remaining guests as to, well, she must have known him before, that this was all sort of pre-planned, that, once she was here he could whisk her off and they could set up a new life together, versus the argument particularly held by the narrator of this story. They'd never met before. She was just, at a point in her life where she wanted a radical change, and this guy provided it for her. So that's the setup. And as I say, I think that's quite interesting, really, if told a bit didactically in places. The meat of the story is a 60-year-old widowed Scottish aristocrat woman approaches the narrator because she wants to tell him something that she's never confessed before, because she's been spurred on by the fact that he maintained this sort of rigorous defence of the other woman, sort of spontaneous action, to turn her life around. And then we get the story of this woman, and I'm not going to spoil it for you. It was pretty uninvolving, it was overwrought, and actually it wasn't that big a deal, really, what she did. She did an act born out of sort of moral goodness. I think she was trying to help somebody else. I don't think it was, but she's sort of lived with the consequences ever since. So, yeah, I didn't think a lot of this. I gave it 4 on Goodreads, but it's actually 3.5, really. And I think, as I say, I've worked out his shtick, so I'm kind of done with Zweig, really. And on to Dave Eggers, The Captain and the Glory, where it's a satire of the whole sort of Trump regime. So there's this sort of massive ocean liner which is being piloted by a captain who is retiring, and they need to appoint someone in his place. And everyone on the ship gets involved, and a guy who basically is a sort of petty thief, petty larcenist, and a bit of a sex pest, sort of puts himself forward, even though he doesn't like boats. And the arguments rage back and forth, sort of saying, well, the American dream, anyone can come from anywhere, to reach the highest office of state. And this guy sort of, gets appointed as captain, and he is Trump. And then what we have is a very sort of hammer to crack a walnut, obvious, not very sharp satire of the whole Trump thing. And you know, as satire, it's not clever enough. As a read, you know, if you could disengage your brain, by which I don't mean ignore the facts about Trump, but if you don't look seriously as to how this is getting its points of satire across, but just read it as a story, as a fable, you might be entertained. But I think that's whether you find any of the jokes funny as well comes into that, and I didn't. And I just think of the work of someone like Jarrett Kobeck, who's I Hate the Internet, and more pertinently to some of the issues in here, his book this year called Only Americans Burn in Hell. They're so much more intellectually rigorous and funnier. They're sharper, they're funnier, and, you know, the analysis of race, for example, in here is 10 times cruder than Kobeck's. So I would go for someone like Kobeck every time over Eggers. Eggers don't do comedy, you know, stick to what you know. So I'm just going to read what I actually, you know, in sort of typical movie trailer sort of form. I think this has probably got the best jokes in the book. You may not agree. So he's just been appointed to the captain of the ship. In the role of first officer, he placed one of his daughter's friends, who had long legs and gorgeous hair, and had many times allowed the captain to stare at her while she ate salad. In the role of chief electrician, he put Eddie the Whack. In the place of chief navigator, he put Pete the Pipe. In fact, he found spots for all his old friends, who are collectively known as the Upskirt Crew. Fingers handled the money, Sweetie handled the food, Patsy the murderer took over the infirmary, and Paul the Manafort oversaw the ship's office of ethics and accountability. The ship's pet shelter was replaced by an abattoir. The ship's teachers were replaced by cops. The ship's theatre group was replaced by television. The ship's librarian was replaced by a television. The ship's historian was replaced by a television. The ship's symphony was replaced by a television playing patriotic songs. And to head up the agency that supported small businesses, the captain appointed the wife of the guy who ran the World Wrestling Federation. So, you know, if you think 110 pages of that is witty and amusing, this may be your thing. I didn't. And I kind of, there's something in there that sort of really alerted me to one of the things I really didn't like about this book. So he's sort of come up with all these nicknames, sort of shady, shadowy nicknames of his sort of thug group that he's put into positions of power on the ship. Patsy the murderer, Fingers, Sweetie, etc. But he kind of ran out of inspiration when it came to Paul Manafort, who is being alluded to like the rest of them. So he just goes, and Paul the Manafort oversaw, blah, 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 blah. To me, that just is a sort of a little slip of the mask that he didn't actually work hard enough on this. I mean, this, although we're sort of are we 2 years into Trump's? No, 3 years into Trump's presidency. You know, Kobeck's book came out this year, this has come out this year. You know, they've had a bit of time to respond to Trump in literature, but if this is the best that the, you know, anti-Trump brigade come up with, you know, it's not very inspiring. The level of analysis is really kind of lame. Now, obviously, the war against Trump will not be fought at the level of art and literature, because that's, you know, that world will never talk to the world of Trump and his supporters. So I'm not saying it has to be a direct weapon, but you would hope that as a cheerleading manifesto or sacred text, you know, to rally people, you know, to bring down Trump, this ain't it. You know, this is not Uncle Tom's Cabin, even, you know, a comedic version of it. It's just really poor, really poor, and I gave this 2.5 stars out of 5. Sorry. So there you go. That was a very quick novellas in November. I did read one more at the start of the month, which was Kapow by Adam Thurl, which I quite liked and gave 4 stars. I will post the link to my review of that. So I've ended up reading three novellas in November, which, considering I hadn't sort of constantly thought about doing it at all, is not bad. Okay, so this will be my post this on Thursday, and tomorrow Friday I'll post the first of my non-fiction November videos. So till tomorrow, thanks very much.